especially pastors, that seem to be in such a fog, Alex. They just didn't have a clue.
They're under a spell. They're under a spell.
Yeah, whether it's a 501c3 thing or whether it's they're afraid of their church congregations, they're afraid of losing their retirement programs or whatever it is, they're sitting out there in a fog without a clue. And then I found some people that they would not identify themselves as churchgoers or Christians, and yet they're energized about fighting for freedom. And so I've said this before. I would rather vote for an unbeliever, regardless of the office, whether it's president, whether it's congressman, senator, House rep, doesn't matter. I would rather vote for an unbeliever who will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States than to vote for a believer who would not preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
But we know that's a trick question because they're not really believers, in their heart if they're not fighting evil.
Well, yeah, I understand that. But what I'm saying is, everybody, every 2 years, every 4 years, everybody professes to be a Christian. If you're running for office,
yes.
People don't come out and say, "Vote for me. I'm an agnostic."
Exactly. I don't want to hear talk. I want to see action.
Exactly. But the point is that the oath that every office holder takes, from federal, state, local, doesn't matter. The oath they take is to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Yes.
And that's what we need to hold them to. And they're not doing it. We the people, unfortunately, for the most part, have not held our elected officials accountable to the Constitution, and that includes Republicans, Democrats. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle. And it's until we begin to hold our elected representatives accountable to the Declaration, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution of the United States, we are not going to have good government, and we are not going to maintain freedom in this country.
That's right. Now, the clergy response teams, we have now 26,000 preachers covertly hired by FEMA. It's now declassified years after we broke it here on the network. This, again, is another sign of classical tyranny. And Pastor, I don't know if you've seen this. We just broke it yesterday at Infowars.com. Have you seen the AmeriCorps paramilitary propaganda ad where they're in red and black uniforms with khakis, literally like something out of a fascist science fiction movie, and then it dovetails.
I have not seen it. Yeah, I have not seen it, but I will go to your website and take a look at it.
And then it dovetails with Government Ready's youth corps to take on vets. We see these drills with the Boy Scouts and with public school groups all over the country, where in the scenarios where they have the 14-year-olds training to take over, law enforcement operations, that they're fighting veterans and gun owners, and then that dovetails with the MIAC report and the DHS report. We have a clear picture now of what's going on here.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'll be glad to go take a look at that. I'm glad that you have put that up. Really, it goes back to what we said at the outset of our discussion, the speed in which these things are taking place. It's really difficult to imagine. When we first broke, when you broke the DHS report, actually MIAC came from DHS in Missouri, and then I picked it up in my column, and it went viral. And then the support began to flood into the state of Missouri. They've since rescinded that report, and they dismissed the person that put it out. And then it came to the DHS report, and the same thing. People, even a few congressmen began to speak out against it, believe it or not. And that report was since taken down. And then you've got Peter King's bill that we started out talking about, and then the other bill that you've just brought out to my attention here today. These things are all, to use your phrase, dovetailing together. There's no question that there is a connection between all of this. Anybody who thinks that these things are being done independently, separately, without connection, they don't see the big picture. There's no doubt that all of this is dovetailing into a common purpose, a common goal, and I think really the ultimate goal here is to disarm the American people. I think, when you look at it, when you look back over our history, the only reason why we are still, at least in some semblance, the maintenance of freedom today, the only reason we have that maintenance is because of the Second Amendment.
That's right. And if the globalists get that, as the UN has said, they will have their world government.
Yeah, that's it. There's no question about it. How fortunate we were that our founding fathers were sagacious enough to put that Second Amendment in the Constitution, and that solid historic gun culture that we've had throughout our history has really been the salvation of our liberties to this point. And I think there's no question that they recognize, the globalists recognize this, and now they're coming at this from multifaceted perspective to try and I think the goal is to disarm the American people, because without the ability of the American people to defend themselves, we are helpless against the machinations of evil men.
Well, Pastor, there's no debate. I mean, you have the White House Chief of Staff, the Attorney General, and the President all introducing legislation in the past, or arguing before federal courts, or writing books and giving speeches and introducing legislation, saying they want a total ban of the American people's firearms. And then the asinine mainstream media is saying we're conspiracy theorists, that this is just a run on guns for no reason. I mean, this tactic they have of always denying. Let's take some calls. Let's talk to Paul in Ohio. Paul, you're on the air with Dr. Baldwin. Go ahead.
Are you there?
Yes, we are.
Okay, they come and took all my guns the other day, no warrant, no nothing. They come into my house, they took every one of them that they could see, but I've been listening to you, buddy, and I've been paying way good attention because I hit a bunch of them, and they didn't get them all. And
why did they say they took your guns?
No warrant, no cause, no reason. They come in and took every gun that they could find. They searched my home from top to bottom. They did not have a...
Let me stop you, and then I want to hear about this and then get Pastor Baldwin's take on it. Look, I have 3 articles in my stack I haven't even gotten to where somebody buys 10,000 rounds of ammo at the gun store. The BATF pulls them over down the street, takes them to jail, and gives them $500,000 bail, saying the ammo's illegal, saying it's an arsenal. And they're now sending BATF under Homeland Security to people's houses who buy 1,000 rounds. Again, acting like it's illegal, and then they've got in the newspaper, then they confiscated 3 handguns from the man's house, and it goes on to say the guy has no criminal record. I have these in the stack today, and so this is going on, and I'm going to hold you over, Paul, but, I mean, that's another point, Chuck Baldwin, I know you're seeing these reports. I see these reports every day where they just arrest people for the Second Amendment. What is going on?
Yeah, that is incredible, and I think we know what's going on. It's the stuff that you talk about every day on your show. I write about it. There's a few others out there that are trying to sound the clarion call. We know what's going on, and Alex, I really think that ultimately the maintenance of freedom is going to come down to the states. And I don't know if you find that encouraging or discouraging, but, I think it began with the states, and I think it's going to end with the states. We are either going to maintain the freedoms that we find enumerated in the Bill of Rights at the state level, or I think we are not going to maintain freedom at all.
I agree with you. I think about 80% of the battle is there. We need to stay on the feds and all the treason going on and document it and try to resist it, but the real power's at the state level. That's why we need more than 8% turnout in state elections instead of 50-something nationally. The national stuff serves as a distraction. Paul, stay there. I want to hear your story when we get back. Stay with us. All right, Paul in Ohio. You're on the air with Dr. Chuck Baldwin, presidential candidate 2008, the nominee for the Constitution Party. Okay, just in a nutshell, Paul, it's very upsetting to hear your story, but I've got news articles stacked up where they just come, they take your guns, they take your ammo, and they say, you shouldn't have had it. In most stories I see, he's an insurance salesman, 54. He told his neighbors they ought to get storable food because the economy might collapse. The neighbors were scared to see him loading a firearm in his car. So police SWAT teamed him, took the ammo and guns, and he's held without bail. And then the article never says he's charged, and later it comes out they're not charged. It's just insane, and the public doesn't know. And the NRA won't tell you this is going on, folks. They're loyal opposition. Paul, so what happened? I mean, the police showed up. I mean, did you say, why are you here? When did this happen?
And this is the strangest story. They were after me because of my energy cell. And they came into my sister's house. Now, this is not my house. They came into her house, took my nephew's guns, took her guns and everything like that because they want me. They're looking for me because of what I can do to save people gas. And I believe that if I'm able to finish what system I've got